Victoria has recorded less than 100 new coronavirus cases for the first time in almost 8 weeks. 94 new infections were detected in the state since yesterday, and 18 more Victorians have died, taking the state toll to 515. Victorian health authorities were expecting new daily coronavirus numbers to fall below 100 this week, but Melburnians are being warned not to expect a significant lifting of restrictions anytime soon. Well, for more, we're joined by Leanne Wong, who is in Melbourne. And Leanne, authorities were hopeful that the numbers would be double-digit by this weekend. Do they think that that number will continue to trend down?
Good morning, Catherine. Yes, Victoria's Chief Health Officer Brett Sutton, when he spoke yesterday, said that according to trends, that numbers are moving in the correct direction and that he does expect numbers to continue to drop following that these trends. In the past 5 days, we've seen numbers consistently below 150, and now we finally cracked that 100 case milestone that I think so many Victorians have been hoping that we would. Now, sadly, another 18 more Victorians have died. That's another 18 more families who have to suffer this unbearable loss, and that means that Victoria's total case deaths, which is more than 515 that you mentioned earlier, means that the state now accounts for more than 85% of Australia's total coronavirus deaths. Now, Professor Brett Sutton said yesterday that the aged care sector and healthcare workers are still driving most new infections in the state. Now, we won't get the full breakdown of today's numbers until we wait for the Premier's presser later today.
And what are we expected to hear from the Premier regarding an easing of restrictions down the track, given that the numbers are now in double digits?
The Premier, Daniel Andrews, has said a number of times he's referred to this pandemic as a public health bushfire, and yesterday when he spoke, he said that it's still smouldering and that the state needs to be careful to not let it get out of control. Now, he also said that in 2 weeks' time, when Stage 4 restrictions in Melbourne are scheduled to end on September 13, that restrictions are unlikely to move back to Stage 2 or Stage 1. Most likely, Melbournians should have to brace themselves to still remain under Stage 3 restrictions to prevent a potential third wave. Now, Victoria's Chief Health Officer Brett Sutton yesterday tweeted, though, that single people in Victoria can perhaps look at potentially expecting eased restrictions. He said that authorities are considering creating a shared household bubble for single people who are struggling with isolation that would allow them to visit one other home potentially.
Because they're 5 weeks into Stage 4 lockdowns, which is no doubt very hard for many. If I can just turn your attention finally to that other story. Melbourne was obviously hit by that huge storm on Thursday night. What's the latest?
Yeah, there are still warnings in place for close to 100 suburbs in Melbourne to not drink their water without boiling it first. Now, that comes after Thursday's night storm that cut power to more than 120,000 homes across Melbourne, and there are still thousands of homes without power, and authorities say it might take a few days for power to go to some of these houses in difficult locations. Now, the Victoria's Health Department has urged Victorians or Melbournians in these affected suburbs to boil their water if they plan on drinking it or brushing their teeth, but has also pointed out that if you are in a location that's been affected, that you are allowed to leave your home in an emergency to seek medical treatment, even if you are an active coronavirus case or are in contact with an active case.
Thank you.
Look at some other news this morning, and a dozen security guards have been sacked from hotel quarantine duties in Sydney. That after breaching their code of conduct. The breaches include sleeping and making TikTok videos while on duty and trying to work for 2 security companies within 24 hours. The New South Wales Police Commissioner has formed a committee to ramp up audits of quarantine hotels and security after 2 guards contracted COVID-19 earlier this month. The committee will also monitor cleanliness and training after hundreds of quarantine hotel guests had to be moved due to substandard conditions.
Well, staying in New South Wales, 6 of the state's 13 new cases are linked to the City Tattersalls Club cluster, while Double Bay Public School in Sydney's east and Homebush Public School in Sydney's west are closed for cleaning after staff tested positive for the virus. Up to Queensland, and official Schoolies Week events on the Gold Coast have been cancelled after being deemed a COVID risk, and new restrictions on the Gold Coast come into force at 8 a.m. 3 new cases were detected in the state yesterday, all linked to a corrective services trainer who tested positive earlier this week.